Good evening and welcome to Renew's regular weekly catch-up on the news. I'm Heather Astbury and with me as ever is our leader James Clarke.
Everyone, hi Heather.
And also tonight I'm delighted that we have Cam Balayev, who is our candidate to be Mayor of London. Welcome, Cam.
Thank you Heather, thank you James.
Thanks, Heather.
Good to see you both. Good to see you this week, James, better than last week. And apologies that we've already had some technical issues. Sorry to keep you waiting, but hopefully it'll be worth it. So let's start by asking, let's start by getting you to know Cam a little bit better. Cam, can you tell us a little bit about you, where you're from and what makes you Cam?
Well, first of all, today is my birthday, right? So we're going to celebrate life online. I've got my wine here. So I was born many years ago, in fact, 39 years ago in a beautiful town called Baku. And then I moved to London when I was a student. I'm running for London Mayor. The election has been delayed. And so the election is going to be happening, hopefully, in May next year. And I've got a very interesting platform based on digital economy, on new economy. And our vision for London, we want London to become, the place. We want London to become a place and a capital of digital economy, new economy. We want London to become center of all the data discussions, of all the privacy discussions. Thank you.
That's great. Well, first of all, happy birthday. And you've also had some other exciting news this week. Are we allowed to tell our viewers?
Oh yeah, last week I became a father. It's very exciting.
So it's so great to have some good news and amongst all the doom and gloom, Cam. So congratulations.
I'm trying to babysit, and the rest of my time, my mayoral candidacy is a proper full-time commitment. So I go to the boroughs, I speak to people, I speak to unhappy people in London, and we've got many people who are very unhappy with our mayor, who is probably not fit for purpose.
And you've talked a little bit about your ambition to make London a sort of data capital. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Why do you think London is ready to take on that role?
Okay, so London is absolutely unique place. Number one, it's geography. London is very convenient for people traveling from Asia and people traveling from America. So it's right in the center, number one. Number two, time zone. Nowadays, we all use Skype, we all use Zoom and other tools of communication. So meaning that time and time zone is very important. London is very convenient for everything. Moreover, English language. English language is not a privilege anymore. It's a necessary tool of business communication, And we have English language. London is one of the centers of English language. Moreover, when people travel somewhere, they think about their families. And London is the most amazing place where you've got all these beautiful, amazing universities. So if you travel somewhere, you will be thinking about your family. And London is the place where your children can go to our schools. And then legal framework. In London, we've got established institutions, legal institutions. We've got common law. And I'm a strong believer that we can capitalize on our potential, and we can emerge as new capital of data economy. We can emerge as new capital of digital economy, which is new economy.
And I mean, that sounds like an exciting way for the city to be going, but I know that you have other concerns about London as well, and I know that one of those that's important to you is the cause of homelessness. And I know that you recently spent some time with the homeless community in London, didn't you?
Yes, so it was last week I spent a night with the homeless, and the thing is, I do a lot of research when it comes to any issue, including homelessness in London, and it's a very, very tough issue, but there is a solution. So I've decided to go and see and talk to people, to homeless people, and I did it. One of our members, David, he was joining the campaign, which there is a charity called Glassdoor. They held a very big campaign last week, and I joined them. And I spent the night with the homeless, and I was talking to them, and it actually helped me to understand their problems better, right? So all the problems related to the homelessness, these are the problems related to mismanagement. If London was managed properly, we wouldn't have this problem, because this should become obsolete by now. Homelessness should become thing of the past. And the Renew Party is going to tackle this problem. We're on top of the things, and we'll come up with a right solution.
That's a really interesting point. And I mean, I'm not going to ask you to expand on all of it right now, but when you say mismanagement, are there a couple of key points that you could pull out for us that explain what you mean?
Well, number one, let's look at levels of, there are actually many problems related to mismanagement, but
Sure.
let's look at what is happening with TfL. TfL is almost a bankrupt because of mismanagement. Look at crime levels. Crime levels are up. It's not safe anymore. London is not safe anymore, and you can talk to anyone. It's also related to problem of mismanagement. Let's look at smart cities. The rest of the world, Singapore, Amsterdam, they're doing so brilliantly well. And I'm a strong believer that this is not the first priority for our mayor. He's mentioning smart cities in general, but he's not on top of the things. When Renew becomes, starts managing this city, London will become the smartest city on the planet Earth, and we mean it.
Well, we could certainly do something.
I can talk forever about problems related to mismanagement of London. There are so many that we can just discuss it until the next morning.
Well, let's do that another time. But for now, when you talk about the need to, the problems with mismanagement and the need to improve the technology and the digital economy in London, we're coming from a place where, as a country, we're suffering quite a lot of mismanagement and quite a lot of technical problems. And I'm thinking track and trace being one of the main ones right now. And I know that that's something that you're quite passionate about as well, Cam, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, no, I mean, we seem to have a system in central government where people are being appointed to these very important positions without having the right, or any, in fact, experience or knowledge of what they're being asked to do. Now, is that, how would you go about tackling that kind of issue as Mayor of London?
You mean the issues related to what? Related to?
So the fact that our track and trace system for COVID isn't working.
Yeah. And
we've spent a lot of money on it, but we don't seem to really have experts that know what they're doing in charge of it.
This is a problem that it will be occurring all the time when it comes to technology, right? First of all, let's think about July, events that happened here in this country in July. In August, actually, do you remember the algorithm debacle when the whole country was basically it was a big letdown for everyone, right? So we realized that, okay, we need to make sure that there is another debacle algorithm or whatever tech debacle is not happening again, right? I'm really afraid that there will be another debacle with this tracing app, right? There have been, since 2 weeks, there have been about 20 million downloads, right? But what is happening with the privacy of this issue? Because privacy is very important. And by the way, when I say London, I want London to emerge as a center of data economy, of center of this, like as a center of new economy, I mean privacy as well. So when we're talking about tracing app, we have to recognize the problem associated with the privacy. Who owns that data? How that data is going to be used? What if there is another problem associated with privacy? What the privacy of those 20 million people will be at stake? We can't let it happen. So that's why we need proper people in place. And of course, London, which is our capital, is #1 priority. People in London is in the office of our mayor should be top-notch people with top knowledge, who understand technology, who understand data, who understand AI, who understand machine learning, and who understand privacy, because privacy is one of the most important issues.
Yeah, you raise an interesting and actually very concerning point there, Cam, because we currently have, well, not at the moment, but Dido Harding was in charge of the Test and Trace app, and she was initially famous for managing to lose the data of thousands of customers at TalkTalk.
Yeah.
So yes, what you've said really doesn't fill me with confidence there, Cam. I imagine she wouldn't be high on your list as somebody to appoint for something so crucial if you were anything that you were running as Mayor of London. Well,
we are, first of all, we are one of those parties that do a lot of research before going into battle. I look at mayoralty as, you know, I will be the CEO of London. I'm not going to be a politician trying to criticize the government all day long. And this is what Sadiq Khan is doing all the time, 24/7. This man is criticizing the government. That's it. He's not managing London. Whereas I will be managing London, and people who will be working with us will be real professionals. And at Renew, we have those professionals. We have a lot of young, a lot of intelligent, smart people, not just young, but of any age. And we have a proper balance of, you know, we have men and women, which is really important.
And speaking of smart, young, intelligent people, it's obviously time to talk to James. Are you still with us, James?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's fascinating listening to Cam talk about his...
Where is your wine, James?
I have my coffee from my flask, but people don't know whether it's adulterated or not, but it's not. It's just coffee keeping me awake before I get started on writing Renew's briefing this evening. But yeah, it was fascinating listening to your thoughts on that, and Heather, your question about ability and competence in technology and track and trace. And we talk about this every week, when people are hired due to political loyalty rather than ability, this will keep happening, right? So it speaks very much, and Cam, you hinted at it, to Renew's identity and Renew's DNA as a party formed in part to bring people in from outside of politics with real skills and real experience in industry. As we always say, our candidates come from running small businesses, academia, manual labor, taxi driving, the NHS, the teaching industry, you name it. We've got people from all backgrounds. And when technology is accelerating so quickly, you need people who are on top of that. You need technological experts at the top if you're trying to come up with very quick, very huge solutions to, you know, pandemics and everything else that's coming in the post. So yes, it's again a competence issue based on prioritizing political loyalty and ideology over competence, ability, and merit.
Yeah, and given where we are today with another shocking set of positive test results for people having COVID, This is not a time when we need people that don't know what they're doing. We really need competent, qualified, experienced, capable people at this point in time. But with the rise in cases today, there is now, of course, much talk about what measures are going to be put in place next. And the hospitality industry seems to be kind of in the forefront of the discussions. And I was interested in what both of you think about that. Do we think that closing hospitality is the answer?
You want to take that one first on, Cam?
Yeah, well, in London, we have a lot of issues with that, right? So the center of London doesn't work at the moment. It basically has stopped, right? And loads of hotels, most of the hotels in central London, loads of places that are dependent directly on tourism they're not working. And we need to make this city working. We need to keep it running. We need to make sure that after lockdown and after, this quarantine, we can start running this city again, because this city needs to be working again, and this is really important.
Yeah, it's a tough one with the closures and what do you close and when and how. I guess if we can accurately identify pubs and restaurants as major vectors of infection or places where clusters begin or continue, then that needs to be addressed. I get the impression we don't know enough. The science and the data is not there to say that if you close the pubs and restaurants, this will be the effect, and perhaps people are catching it in other places.
Well, that seems to be one of the main complaints, is that there doesn't seem to really be much hard evidence to say that it is in hospitality that people are catching the disease. And I'm wondering if what you think about other reasons for why the spread is happening as fast as it is right now, because there have already been restrictions on hospitality put in place. And I'm wondering whether you think that it has more to do with the fact that people aren't actually following the rules for one reason or another. Certainly there have been many different rules put in place, and there has been quite a lot of evidence that maybe not everybody needs to follow those that are in place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been said many times, and it's true that clarity over what you can and can't do has really diminished. And we point to Cummings breaking of the rules as kind of a tipping point there. I think we don't know yet. I think we're going to have to look back and do an inquiry into why the UK was hit worse than other places. Was it due to underlying health conditions that occur here more than in other places? When we see places, a north-south divide emerging almost, is it to do with wealth, or are there correlations with deprived areas, or, as may be the case, is London, and the south simply a couple of weeks behind, places in the north? It's extremely complicated, and as I say, at times like this, you want professionals who are running this based on experience and merit, which we don't have.
Yeah, I think it's so important, isn't it, that we actually feel like we can trust the advice that we're being given, because we're all being asked to do quite difficult things right now. And I've heard some really heartbreaking stories from people in the hospitality sector who are watching their businesses just folding before their eyes, and they don't understand why, and they can't understand the evidence, and they don't feel like there's enough support. So
Especially
Sorry, go on, Cam.
of London, in the center of London. I talk to these people all the time. In the center of London, it's a big, big problem. Businesses, small businesses, right? Business owners, they don't know what to do because they're very much dependent on travelers. Number one, there are no travelers now in London.
Right.
Number two, their businesses are empty and just they don't know what to do. In other boroughs, our situation is not good as well. So the implications of what is happening is huge, and I totally agree with James that there is not enough data at the moment to understand what is the problem. But what we know that London is later when it comes to implementation of various measures. London is always late. And what we see, our mayor, he starts criticizing the government first, right? He gets some credit for it, and then he starts doing something. So we have to be thinking about implementation of the problem, implementation of the measures, number one. We have to be thinking about all those people who are losing money at the moment because of, their businesses are not working. And we have to be thinking about trust issues because at the moment, there is no trust. And this is the most important element, foundation of everything, relationship between the citizen and, our mayor. There is no trust. And I can see it. I talk to people all the time.
Absolutely. I know before the pandemic and when we were putting Cam's mayoral campaign together, protecting small businesses in London and independent businesses was a key plank of the campaign we were assembling. And I know Cam went and talked to a lot of small businesses in London and just found out how they were hurting and in what ways. Now, the pandemic has, exacerbated that problem, tenfold. Imagine you've started a small business in the last 2 years. What kind of position, how likely will that business survive given, lack of footfall, lack of trade, uncertainty, you name it. So supporting small businesses as a plank of Renew's national policy, but specifically Cam's London policy is absolutely more crucial now than ever.
Yeah. And by the way, we are live now, so I believe a lot of people are watching us and will be watching us. You can always send us email. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. If you're a small business in London, in the center of London, or doesn't matter, in other boroughs, I'm more than happy to talk to you. We can discuss it together, and we have to unite in order to be strong, in order to raise awareness about problems of small businesses in London, especially when it comes to hospitality sector.
Okay, well, you heard it here, everybody. Cam is ready and willing to take your questions, to hear your problems, to talk to you. You can contact him through our Facebook page or through our Twitter accounts. There's lots, or through our website. So I would take him up on that if I were you. Thank you for the offer, Cam. Well, let's move on a little bit from COVID because, let's move on from COVID in the UK because I think it would be remiss not to touch this week on what's happening in the US and particularly what's happening with Donald Trump. Now, as we have been told, Donald Trump suffered from COVID. It seems like he suffered from it for about 5 minutes because he was tested positive, he was on a helicopter, he was pumped full of some drugs, and now he's back in the White House at work. So I think there are lots of questions that need to be answered, and I'm interested in what Cam and James think about whether Donald should at this point be in the White House, and I mean that as a health question, not a political question.
Yeah, I mean, it's what can you say about this? If you've been tested positive and you've had symptoms, and your symptoms have been bad enough that you've needed to be pumped full of drugs, what on earth are you doing going back to work and interacting with people? Surely the US's own guidelines are similar to ours, where a 2-week self-quarantine would appear to be the absolute minimum. And we're really getting into uncharted territories now in the US. When it was reported first that Trump had COVID, I was interested in how that might affect the outcome of the election. And the betting markets had been suspended.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and some of them still are. Some of them still are. What does that mean? I mean, some of the smartest commentators and podcasters and bloggers, there's no consensus on what this might mean for the US election. There was speculation that if he got really ill, that would be him done. But also that if he came back and appeared to have beaten it, that would give him a boost. I believe the polling numbers haven't really changed that much, but it's breathtaking, and I guess we can only hope that that Trump does not secure a second term, and also that the election is
around the corner.
Yeah, that it's won convincingly. And you don't have a Florida situation as you had with W. Bush. So yeah, deeply concerning.
And Cam, his announcement today is that he's refusing to engage in the next presidential debate because they had suggested holding it virtually. So what do you make of that?
Well, I think that, as I'm siding with James, I think any rational person should understand that quarantine is absolutely important when you are, when you have coronavirus, number one. Number two, it's very difficult for me to say if it is a political stunt. I think American people know better. They're very smart, intelligent people. And I'm not sure how it's going to, I think the election is around the corner, and that's why we are trying to politicize a lot of issues, and especially around this virtual debate. Well, let's see what is going to happen.
It's interesting times, and I feel like we've been saying that for quite some time now about politics and life in general, that we live in interesting times, and it might be quite nice if we had a spell where times were less interesting and a bit more stable, but I suspect that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah,
but
the UK, the box set is just running and running, isn't it? It's terribly so.
Yeah, sadly, I don't think the seasons are getting better as they go on.
No, they're getting more far-fetched.
Yeah, that's what always happens though, right? They've run out of normal things, so now we're going with the bizarre. Anyway, that's us on half an hour. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time once again tonight.
Thanks, Eva.
Thank you to everybody who stuck with us, and thank you to everybody who is not watching us live, but is watching us recorded. As Cam said, send in your questions for him. He'll be happy to answer them. And actually, I'm going to volunteer James to do the same thing, because I know James well enough to know that James would also be very happy to do the same. Absolutely. So if you have any questions for either Cam or James, please do send them in. And hopefully we'll see you all again next week.
And don't forget to open your inbox tomorrow morning for Renew's Friday briefing, which will also be up on the website at the same time, first thing tomorrow morning.
And of course, if you don't get Renew's weekly briefing into your inbox, that's because you haven't joined us as a member yet. So obviously you need to sort that immediately.
Don't waste your time and join us today. Thank you, everyone.
Exactly. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.